Welcome, 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 welcome. I think that we are on everywhere that we can be on. Hopefully, Facebook is on because I know they were having a little issue earlier. But welcome to In the Loop Lupus Live with Lupus in Color. I'm so excited to be with you all today. We are streaming live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. So if you see me looking down or looking to the side, I'm looking at Instagram to make sure your questions are going to be answered and make sure that you guys are still with us online. So, as usual, we have to do what we have to do, right? We have to go and do our disclaimer. So, let's do that real quick. So, Lupus in Color event and posting disclaimer. This information and answers provided during Lupus in Color videos and live events are not meant to be used as a substitute for professional medical advice. Information provided may differ from your physician's advice. The information provided and presented is for educational purposes only to support attendees in the quest to learn more about a most silent disease. Please check with your own physician before changing anything in your treatment plan. The information contained in any video or live event is not intended to recommend the self management or health problems or wellness. It is not intended to endorse or recommend any particular type of medical treatment. Should any attendee have any health care related questions, promptly call or consult your physician or healthcare provider. No information presented should be used by any attendee to disregard medical and or health related advice or provide a basis to delay consultation with your personal physician or qualified healthcare provider. Persons accessing this information assume full responsibility for the use of the information and understand and agree that Lupus in Color and or its presenters are not responsible or liable for any claim, loss, or damage arising from the use of the information. Okay. Whew. I know that's a lot, y'all. I know y'all get tired of me saying that, but hey, we have to be on point with what we're doing. So that was the little things that we had to get out the way right before we start. Today, we have the privilege of talking to Victoria Gibbs, who is a great lupus warrior. And I'm just going to read her bio to you so that you can just hear what she has done so far. So, Victoria is a full time yogi, yoga athlete, instructor, model, influencer, digital content creator, and lupus warrior. She began practicing yoga 10 years ago, and from the first time that she stepped onto her mat, her passion was evident, shaping her into the woman she is today. Beyond her yoga life, she is a Dartmouth College graduate, a former financier turned health and wellness entrepreneur. I'm going to stop there because I see that it hit the rest of what I had to say here. So, without further ado, I'm going to let Victoria tell you who she is, and I'm going to bring her up to the stage. Hi, Victoria.
Hi, how are you?
So good. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Awesome. I'm so excited that you are here with us. I know we're all running and jumping through hoops to get through the day. I saw some of your story and as far as your face is concerned and everything. So I've been excited. I'm like, I want to do that. So how are you today?
I am doing quite well. I wish it was a little bit warmer in New York, but I'll just take it one day at a time. But
Yeah,
overall, no complaints and just trying to enjoy life the best way that I can.
I can understand that. I understand that. So let's get into it. So tell me about your journey with lupus and, from your initial diagnosis to where you are today.
I was diagnosed with lupus in June of 2016. Um, and prior to my diagnosis, I was working in finance, practicing yoga every day, very socially oriented, hanging out all the time, and actually commuting to and from Manhattan for work from Long Island. And so I kept a very, very busy schedule. and was preparing for a national yoga competition at the time, when all of my symptoms really began to onset. And so it started in January of that year. I had gone on vacation to beautiful Mexico and came back with a sunburn for the first time in my life. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time. I just kind of kept going on with my daily routine, but eventually other symptoms started to arise. So at one point, my face blew up like a chipmunk, and my body started to swell in places that I didn't even know could swell. And I started running fevers and basically felt like I had what was a very bad version of the flu. And so my team at the time, that I worked for, they were like, no, stay home, take it easy. We can tell like things aren't normal. And so I did, and eventually went back into work and was able to kind of hang on by a thread. I started experiencing very bad brain fog. So anytime, my father would call me at the office to check in, we had daily check-ins. I honestly didn't even recognize his voice when I would answer the phone.
Wow.
And while I was commuting, I was completely, literally, and figuratively in a fog. The only thing I could recognize were colors. So that's
Wow.
the only way that I was able to associate getting onto the right train at the time.
Mm.
And when I would get to my final destination, the conductor would come and shake me and be like, hi, you need to get off the train now. And so I would get off and I would walk in circles for at least half an hour looking for my car because I couldn't remember where I parked. And one day I drove home every day after the train station, but I just remember one time in particular, it was like very frightening because I almost drove directly into a basketball hoop. My faculties were completely gone. And so, despite all of that, I continued to train for this yoga competition because I'm very type A. And I was like, I have to go. I made it this far. I'm going to give it my all no matter how I'm feeling. And so I flew out to Jackson Hole, Wyoming for the competition. And the day before I left, I started to get all these white spots in my mouth, which now I know are mouth ulcers.
Yeah.
And I had a fever of about 103 or 4, but I didn't tell anyone about it.
Yeah.
So I just managed to navigate my way to Wyoming. And once I got on the stage, the bright lights threw me
Mm.
off completely, and I literally collapsed on stage. And so by the time I flew home, I actively did not step foot back into the yoga studio. I stopped going to work. I literally spent every single day in bed sleeping what felt like 20 plus hours a day, so almost the entire day. And I wasn't living with my parents at the time. And I think had I been, things would have turned out a little bit differently. I probably would have been diagnosed faster. But after speaking with my parents multiple times, they're like, Toria, something is very wrong. And
Mhm.
so they begged me to come home. So I did, but it's the grace of God that got me home because commuting from Long Island to Manhattan, then to switch
Yeah.
trains and get to Jersey was an insane task at the time. And um, finally got home. My fever was even worse at that time. My motor skills really declined. I wasn't able to walk properly without assistance.
Right.
And my dad got me in to see my primary care physician, and they drew some blood work. And at that time, they were like, something is very wrong. And so they sent me to see a rheumatologist. So I'm very lucky that all of this happened within like days of each other. There weren't weeks or months of waiting. And the rheumatologist had diagnosed me with lupus, and I had never even heard of lupus. And so
Right. Right. As most of us, right?
what is this? Um, And I spent that entire summer at home recuperating.
Mhm.
Eventually got back into a part-time routine once the fall hit. And for a couple of years, I felt like I had a pretty, you know, good existence, not many flares, of course, days of fatigue or random joint pain, but nothing too extreme. Um, but then, like once in a blue moon, I remember it was 2019. So 3 years later, I had a very bad flare where I ended up in the hospital for a
Mhm.
week.
Mhm.
And again, it's just felt like going back to square one and starting all over the recovery process and the healing. And, they have the IV in you and it
Mhm.
leads to all sorts of weight gain and increased steroids and everything. So it's all about starting over, but then, a couple months later, back to normal and actually back to a full-time routine, which for me is always very intense.
Mhm.
Um, but thankfully, I've learned to kind of scale things back accordingly because I can't keep up with my routine the way I'd like to.
Right.
So, of course, you live and you learn. But I think the worst challenge for me thus far with lupus was last year. I had a very bad um, what I thought was kidney infection. So I basically gained 35 pounds of fluid and couldn't figure out why.
Wow.
Was really traumatized by
Right.
it,
I bet.
especially after, you know, giving my life over to yoga and being in the digital content creator space and in front of the camera all the time. I'm like, how can I work like this? That this
Right.
is completely foreign to me. And so eventually, got back to normal and just noticed that my heart was beating significantly fast. I was constantly short of breath, but I
Mhm.
still managed to kind of navigate through life. And my kidney doctor, he suggested that I get some CAT scans done because he was concerned that the severity of my flare with fluid retention had affected my other organs. And I was like, sure, yeah, we can go ahead and do that. No
Okay.
problem. I'm trying to be a good patient for once. And they noticed when they did a pelvic scan that I had something going on, but they weren't sure what it was necessarily. So they had me get a chest scan done. And this was May of last year. I remember it quite vividly.
Mhm.
And when I got the chest scan results back, they told me that I had a tear in my ascending aorta and
Wow.
an aneurysm that was 8 centimeters in size that could rupture at any moment and be fatal.
Wow.
So they basically told me, you need to come to the ER right now. You need to have open heart surgery.
Good
And
grief.
so my heart dropped, everything dropped. I just didn't even know how to process. I That was the last thing I expected to hear from the doctor. I called my parents crying. They're like, "We're coming into the city right now. We'll be right there with you." It was just kind of like just
Yeah.
earth shattering in some respects because
Mhm.
that's not something that I ever thought I would need to have, especially not at 38.
Right.
So, um,
That had to be so scary for you.
it
It
was frightening. I think because it all happened so quickly that the time
Mhm.
to process wasn't really there. It just kind of had to happen. But I think a lot of my meditation and ability to just journal and find
Yeah. Yeah.
positivity in every situation, no matter how challenging it is, was kind of my saving grace to get through it one day at a time.
Awesome.
Um, and
That's
then after the procedure, everything has been pretty solid since then.
yeah,
So
it might have been the problem all along that was trying to come up. And
exactly,
finally, when it manifested, your body just was ready to be healed at that point.
exactly. And so I'm very grateful for that procedure, even though,
Yeah.
obviously it saved my life and also to some extent made me feel like I was being set back um, in terms of work and progress in life and everything like that. But I'm just happy to be able to talk about it today and share the experience. And, I laugh about it sometimes today, which is kind of crazy, but in general, I'm like, this
It was
is
rough.
it
Yeah.
was it was meant for me. It saved my life. And you know, people going through other situations, whether it's lupus or cancer or whatever it is, can hopefully be inspired and motivated as far as how gracefully I feel I was able to handle the situation and make the most of it. So,
Now you said something that was really really powerful for me, and that was your meditation, your yoga, your actual knowledge of just being in your now and just going with the flow really helped you. Do you feel like yoga kind of prepared you for this journey? If you know what I mean.
absolutely. Besides being able to come back from a physical perspective, mentally, it has really changed my life.
Absolutely.
When I first started practicing yoga, I didn't truly understand the mental benefits of it. For me, it was just doing the best dancer pose or, deepest back bend. But when I finally was able to sit down and just kind of take some time to really make sense of
Mhm.
the practice and the journey, I realized that there is this whole element of, there's no stress, there's the element of meditation, and then there's this really deep mind body connection.
Oh
And
yeah.
so by focusing on my breathing, for instance,
Mhm.
or, just taking 5 minutes for myself to sit and give myself that time and space to acknowledge exactly how I'm feeling and be honest with where I am today has been really pivotal in navigating lupus and finding peace, um,
Mm.
and an element of patience. I realize, through my yoga practice, I've learned that everything takes time and nothing can be a quick overnight fix, or you can't be the best at something overnight, whatever the best really means. But just being able to be patient and be at peace and know that every day is different and that's okay. And
Yeah.
every day is a new opportunity to start over. So every time I get on my mat and I just kind of calm my mind, close my eyes, and like, this is a new opportunity to see how I'm feeling today, where I am mentally, physically, and just really acknowledge that.
Yeah. And that's important. It's important not only in your lupus journey, but it's important in life itself. I
Yeah.
mean, you have given so many good little gems here that people can really, really tap into. And I love that. I love the whole mind body connection because I really do feel that our mind controls our body. And if we control our mindset and our thoughts, we can really make a change on our lupus journey. What do you feel about that?
No, I completely agree. I think everything is a mindset. I made a point back in 2019, just before my second hospitalization, actually, to turn my life over to having a positive mindset only and always. So I always come from a place of positivity, a place of gratitude, and I think having that ability has given me the space and the wherewithal to be able to navigate this autoimmune disease successfully. I think a lot of people tend to think when they're diagnosed with lupus, poor me, why me? The doctor said this or the doctor said that. But what everyone says is not sacrosanct. It's how you handle it and
Right.
how you approach a situation. And of course, there are going to be challenges, but if you can rise above all of the negativity and know that, I'm doing my best and I'm giving it my all, and that's all I can do, I think is really the most important thing.
Right. Just doing your best, just doing whatever your best is, whatever your 100% is that day.
Exactly.
That's all you can do. How do you really, how do you tell somebody to begin to change their mindset and instead of reacting to lupus, changing their response to lupus? How do you talk to people about that and tell them how to do that?
For me, a lot of it boils down to having people try to begin to journal more. I
Mhm,
think the more you can try to become in touch with your feelings and emotions and not hide them
mhm,
or
mm,
be shameful of them,
absolutely.
it's a really good turning point for people to start to make those changes. When you're not accepting of the fact that you have something or have an issue, whether
Mhm,
it's lupus or an addiction or whatever it is,
mhm.
um, the ability to just accept is really how you'll be able to make those changes mentally. If you
Right.
can't accept something and be honest with yourself about it, it's hard to make those changes.
Mhm.
So in order to really kind of,
Yeah, you
assume
gotta
a
kind of go.
positive mindset,
Yeah,
you
you
have
kind
to
of go
accept.
through that grieving process. You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's hard. I guess hindsight is 2020. When you look back at your person before you were diagnosed with lupus, did you see anything there that might have suggested later on in life after you've gone through all this stuff? Did you see something in there that might have even give you an inclination that, oh, maybe that's when it started?
Looking back, I mean, there were times when obviously, this is like most college students, but
Mhm.
I dealt with extreme fatigue.
Mhm.
There was one point the nurse at school diagnosed me with mono,
Mm,
and
okay.
it probably wasn't even mono. It was probably just a flare, but I, took whatever she said and went with it. But I've experienced some traumatic life events, and I
Okay.
know there is no true diagnosis, but I do believe I put my body under a lot of mental and physical stress for many years.
Yeah.
I grew up dancing classical ballet
Wow.
and developed an eating disorder.
Mm.
And so not that that's the cause, but I do
No.
think it contributed to it. Um, I also lost my best friend to suicide while we were
Mm,
roommates.
mm,
And so that was something that took a very bad toll
mm.
on me and
All of that
was
stress.
a lot of stress. And the day after she committed suicide, my father had quadruple bypass open heart surgery. So it was just a roller coaster of things. And I had developed a very bad alcohol addiction
Mhm.
and just trying to cope. And well,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't say cope, it was more like check out
Yeah.
with the
Numbing.
addiction.
Yeah.
But
A numbing process. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Because you know what you said, the nurse said you have mono. It's funny because I have heard that if we look at every lupus word, which we'll never be able to do, that either Epstein Barr, in all types of different things could set it off, that
Mhm.
we thought was just that, and it was really a trigger for lupus. You know what I mean? So all
Exactly.
of that stress that you went through, all of all of the things that you've gone through, it is just a miracle that you are here today, able to share your story and able to be in that positive mindset. And I applaud you for that. That's amazing.
Thank you. It was a journey to get to this point, but
Absolutely.
I think after a while you realize that being sad or depressed or, down on yourself all of the time isn't going to make it better. It's only
Right.
going to make it worse. And so if you can turn that around into learning from challenges and finding the good in everything, or just being grateful for the simple things. It's never about anything overarching. It's for me, the sun is shining today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, like I'm going to celebrate that. I
Exactly.
think just finding positivity in those little moments can really make all the difference.
And there's a difference, and I just want to point this out between what you're saying and toxic positivity, because what you're saying is really to tap into your now and understand and be grateful for those moments, not just repress all those feelings, because you're journaling, you're doing things to help yourself deal with those things. So I just wanted to point that out. Do you have anything to say about that? Because I know somebody somewhere is going to say, "Oh, you guys are just toxic positive. You can't be positive all the time." So, can you touch on that for us?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, there are always going to be bad days. That's just human nature. Um, but I think as long as you can acknowledge that you're feeling down today, or
Mhm.
acknowledge that, you know, this sucks and it's consuming me for the day, I think will at least allow you to, for the next day, maybe have a different outlook. Like, oh, today is better. But if you can't acknowledge and accept and be honest with
Mhm.
the situation or with yourself or where you are, um, it can definitely be toxic. I mean, stuffing things under the rug only makes it worse. And I know I used to do that in the past. And so to be able to finally not do that and speak my truth, and no matter who likes it, I think is very important. Because even if someone doesn't like it, at least deep down that you
Right.
spoke your truth. And at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. I mean, we have to fight for ourselves. No one else is going to do it for us. And so to be able to prioritize what you have to say and your needs and make those sacrifices for yourself,
Mhm.
um, are really crucial.
Absolutely. I wanted to show you some of the comments that were being said. Jenny says, "I love that. I always say acceptance is the first step to getting the right treatment you need." I agree with that. I so agree with that. Tasha said that acceptance was hard for her and she was in denial for a while. Now, have you ever experienced that? Like, I don't really have the disease, I can't, I don't have time to mess with this. Did you go through that type of feeling as you were dealing with what's going on?
I definitely did I mean, I would say pre-diagnosis more than anything else.
Hmm.
Um, just not really taking heed of the fact that there is something drastically wrong and not doing the right things to navigate it. Um, Even today, when, flares signal, I'm like, oh, today's just a weird day, which, it very well can be. But then other times when it's consistently a weird day, I need to be doing something more to help myself. And a lot of times in the past, I've just kind of said, oh, it'll get better tomorrow. And then I keep saying the same thing for a month. And then, here I am in like a huge flare. Um, and
That's an
just
important point.
having denied for weeks that like something is clearly wrong. And, so there is that time where, you forget that you have, or not forget, you don't
Oh, you're
want to
right.
acknowledge that you
You're
have
right. You
an
know,
issue.
I think sometimes we
Um,
feel so good, you know what I'm saying? Or we think we
yeah,
feel good. Or we think that, oh, I just have a cold when it might be something more serious. And we really need to be
exactly.
more in tune with ourselves. And I think that your yoga and meditation and all that helped you to begin to really just tune into you.
It did, because for a very long time, I have used my practice as a means to navigate how my body is doing as far as lupus goes. And so if I get on my mat and I'm feeling heavy or weighed down, I know maybe the next day I need to scale it back and have a rest day. Or if my joints are painful while doing certain poses, I know that, maybe I need to call my doctor just to check in. It gives me the cues that I need to be able to maintain my lifestyle. And so by acknowledging those cues in the moment, I can do the right thing going forward so that I don't end up in some sort of,
Right.
2-month flare or
Right.
back in the hospital.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love how you said that. Jenny says, acknowledge, reflect, and be honest. Strive for greatness. Yes, I love that. I mean, you said it all, because if we're not accepting it and we're not being honest, not only with ourselves, but even with our doctors as to what our symptoms are, it can really either harm us or help us. So that's definitely a very important point. Tasha says, what do you do when certain family members say, oh, you're not sick, it's just all in your head? I know what I'm going to say, but you go ahead and start with that to you right now.
Um, Honestly, in the beginning, I would say, you know, some family members told me that I just needed more rest or that I was doing too much
Right.
or, being too social or not eating properly or, just kind of something a little bit more superficial. Um, I know now that when things come up as far as, me being extremely tired or not having the energy to commute to go, let's say, for instance, see my parents in Jersey, um, there's a moment sometimes where, um, they're like, "Oh, are you sure, sweetie? Like, just come. Like, it's fine. You can do it, and you can
Right.
sleep when you get here." I'm like, "No, I need to sleep now. Like, I'm not coming. I'll see you tomorrow or in a couple of days." And so,
Right.
you know, I realize with family members, everyone generally has your best interest at heart and they want to try to understand, but sometimes they just don't have the capacity to because they're not in your body.
Right.
And so, as difficult as it may be at times, the one thing that you should always do, and one thing I always do, is I tell whomever exactly how I'm feeling or what's going on. I realize that trying to push myself to accommodate everyone else is not
Mhm.
going to serve me.
Woo. Yeah.
And no one else is going to be worried about my recovery time or, it's like, oh, I went to go do this with so and so, but now I'm in bed for a week and they're going on with their regular lives and I'm the one suffering.
Right. It goes back to that honesty that you talked about,
Yeah,
being honest with yourself, being that you cannot go or you cannot do something, and then being honest with everyone else and not hiding that, allowing people to see that and being transparent in your lupus journey.
exactly. And if someone loves you, if they're your best friend or your family member, they'll understand. I mean, I have lost friendships in the past, which, is fine, but I had to assert myself and it became a problem. And, it's their loss at the end of the day, but I felt stronger for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's, challenging in the moment, but at the end of the day, it's what I needed to do. And
Mm-hmm.
this is like something where you have to be selfish.
There you
And
go.
I don't enjoy being selfish, but in certain regards, you have to be. And this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, I often say to people who say that, that used to say that, I don't think anybody has said that to me in a long time, that it's all in my head or I'm
Mm-mm,
not
I
really
know.
sick. But you know what? That's your opinion. The reality is that I am, and I leave it at that. I really don't go back and forth with people as far as, how I'm feeling. I'm going to be honest with them, and we go back to that whole transparency thing that we must do most of the time. Some people just don't deserve, though, to know your lupus story. You know what I mean? They don't deserve to know those intimate details of when you're not feeling well. Um, Jenny says, I always have to keep one eye open with lupus, potentially showing its colors. Yeah, that's the truth. I know.
It's true. Have to stay proactive. I mean, it's hard to stay 5 steps ahead of it, but if you can at least continue to do the things such as sleep and hydrate and eat well and light movement, it doesn't have to be insane, but just anything to kind of help sustain yourself, I think is the best thing we can do. But I mean, heart surgery, like I never thought that was on the agenda. So, you definitely have to keep one eye open. And no matter how proactive you are, sometimes there's still no way to
Really get over
escape certain
everything.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very true. That's very true. Kimberly says, I had to realize that I can't be that person for everyone anymore. And she did that through counseling. And that was going to be another question of mine. Like, what kind of coping skills are you using besides the yoga and meditation and journaling? What other coping skills do you use just to be able to go throughout your days? Because some days are just difficult. Just like you said, this you can do everything right, and some days are just going to be difficult.
Mhm.
What type of coping skills are you using? Do you do therapy? Do you talk to a friend? You have a support system within your family or outside of your family that helps you?
I tend to talk very openly to anyone who will listen, I guess. I don't really hide anything that I'm going through.
Mhm,
Um, some people say it's a fault, but I think it's actually a strength.
mhm,
I actually use my social media as a very prominent way for me to express myself and use it as counseling in some regard. Um, it's my opportunity to really highlight exactly what's happening, good, bad, the ugly, and then how I'm coping with it in that moment. So,
mhm.
again, it's through writing, but it's a platform where I can be open and honest and just really be thorough about exactly what's going on without any shame or judgment. And I mean, thankfully, everyone has always been very responsive. And so to be able to communicate and find other lupus warriors or other people who have suffered from addiction or, lost someone to suicide, just being able to communicate with other people in that regard and, hear their stories.
Mhm.
I continue to share more of mine, I think has been really cleansing and therapeutic on multiple levels, especially on the days when, I can't go to the gym or I can't go to yoga class.
Right.
What else am I going to do? I need something else. And so, definitely being able to communicate with my social media community has been just very calming, has given me a lot of solace, and just has been a really great resource and outlet for me, surprisingly.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. Most of the time when I'm posting something for someone else, it's really for me sometimes too.
Mhm.
And it's just something about being able to express yourself in that way that really makes a difference in your lupus fight. That's why I
I
love telling for people to tell their stories, because that's a sense of release, and it helps you to really heal or begin healing, because we heal every day.
No, it's so true. I think that, in whatever capacity, using, whether it's talking on the phone or therapy or whatever it is, being able to share in that regard can be really empowering.
Right.
A lot of times it's just so easy to, you know, just hide or not want to talk or just keep everything in. I think I grew up really keeping everything in. I never felt like I had a voice. I mean,
Mm.
I could have had a voice, I should say, just in case mom and dad are
Right.
watching. I don't want them to think that, like,
They
I'm
shoved your voice. Yeah, we got you.
exactly. It's not at all, but it's like just that whole element of being within oneself and just keeping everything quiet. Because I'm not someone who likes to ruffle feathers, for instance, but I think, being able to just talk and share is kind of, it's just healing, like you said, in the
Yeah,
best way possible.
yeah. It's a support for you as well. It definitely is. It definitely is. Someone I think it's I can't see it. I don't have on my glasses. I think it's Twinkie on or what is this Instagram that says self care is not selfish. I'm learning to say no, and that is a statement without an explanation. Yes, no is a complete sentence. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that.
It's not easy to do at first, but once you learn to do it, it feels so good.
Yeah, it really does. It's like a release. No.
Exactly.
It's good. It's good. I love it. Um, Chantel says, I'm newly diagnosed and I'm struggling with this diagnosis, as you should because it's new. Is there any advice or words of encouragement you can give me? What words of encouragement do you give newly diagnosed men, women, or children?
I would say to keep an open mind to
Mm-hmm.
start, because especially in the beginning, you never really know what to expect, um, or what's going to arise, or what's going to be told to you or newly discovered. And so keep an open mind and just be patient with the process. Um, Being able to find patience within yourself, within your doctors, within your family members, because it's also new for them too. And so they're going to be trying to figure out how to support you the best way possible. Um, Being able to just be calm and know that this is a lifelong journey. And so there aren't going to be any answers overnight. You're not going to feel better by the morning. You just have to be able to take it one day at a time, one breath at a time, and start to figure out what's going to serve you, how you're going to be able to navigate this. Me navigating lupus looks different than someone else navigating lupus, especially depending on the level and what kind of lupus. So
Mm-hmm.
just no comparisons, no judgments. This is your personal journey, your personal story. So just take it one day at a time, one breath at a time, an open mind always.
I love that. I love that. That open mind, that open heart to everything, to the good, the bad, the ugly, and make sure that you are just knowing that you are the most important person on this lupus journey. I love
And one other thing, definitely ask questions,
mm.
lots of questions. Um, and make sure you feel comfortable with your team of doctors. I mean, I know it's not always easy to find doctors in the healthcare system who are accessible to us, but if you can stay committed to the process, the journey, your team, and just ask all of the questions, whether you think you know the answer or not.
Mhm.
This is not a time where less is more is more, and is going to serve you down the road in the long run.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Are there any misconceptions about lupus that you'd like to clear up? Any things that you think that people say about lupus that you just need to clear the air of?
My favorite is you don't look sick. Like,
Right. Like sick has a look.
yeah, lupus is one of those things where it is really just that unpredictable, and it doesn't have a face lupus can look like anything and affect anyone at any time. And so the fact that people think you have to look a certain way in order to have this autoimmune issue is completely false. I remember initially that when I was first diagnosed, I look like a picture of health. Like nobody would ever think that I would end up with an autoimmune disease or that, last year I would have needed open heart surgery. But there are no rules when it comes to lupus. It's kind of just like an open playing field. And so the more that people can stop making assumptions and take things for what they actually are, I think is really important. Last, I guess it was January, March, February, that time frame, I clearly looked sick because I had 35 pounds of fluid retention. I looked like a totally different person.
Right,
So
right.
in that moment, it's like, oh, yeah, she does have an issue. But when you see people walking on the street day to day, or if you look at my Instagram, you would never think there's something wrong with me. I look perfectly normal. But that's, tomorrow I could wake up and not be able to get out of bed. Yesterday, I spent the whole day in bed. You just don't really know what's going to happen. And so when people make those assumptions or stereotypes about what being sick looks like or what lupus really is, I think it's kind of
Yeah, I know.
insensitive.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. You like it's frustrating. It's like you said, there's no look, and everybody's fighting a battle, and to say stuff like that is just really insensitive. Absolutely. Chantel Renee on Instagram said, "Learn everything you can. The more you know, the less scary it's going to be, and better decisions you can make regarding your treatment." I agree with that to a point. I do. But I will caution anybody who has lupus to be careful about how much you read because you can think that you're just going to die tomorrow. Some of the things that some of us have gone through, even you, Victoria, myself, everybody who's on this webinar, they can tell you that it's scary. And sometimes we can overread and get ourselves into a anxiety ridden tizzy. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think WebMD and Google are our worst enemies when at times.
Yeah, because
I
I mean,
mean,
sometimes it can be rough.
it can. And I mean, you can get information from your doctor. That's one thing. Or if they provide you with something, sure. But to go online and research, you will think that you're going to die. And it doesn't serve you mentally. It's only going to elicit stress, like you said, anxiety, all sorts of fear. And lupus reacts off of that stuff. And so the more you can let go of the stress and the fear and just breathe, you're going to be much better off. I think leave the questions and a lot of the reading to the doctors and don't read that stuff online, especially everyone's case is so individual that to read a summary of something, it's not going to be that helpful. You might be able to get a tidbit or two, but in general, I don't think it's going to,
Yeah.
save you in any capacity.
Yeah, and you just have to like we say in the disclaimer, you just have to make your own choices for your own body because
Yeah.
everybody is so different with lupus. Um, we have Velez watching from Philippines. Hi, thank you for tuning in. Not sure what time it is there, but I know it's not 7:48 in the evening, so I love it. And we're starting to wrap up a little bit. I want to ask some questions that I love to ask lupus warriors to see just how they get their encouragement. So the first question I want to ask you is, what is your fight song? Like, what's the song that makes you get up and move?
Well, I would say there's like a couple.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
if we're going from like a lyrics perspective,
Mhm.
I go back to my days from college and I would say the band Journey, the
Mm,
song Don't Stop Believin'.
I love it.
Because you can't stop believing. You have to keep the faith. You have to stay positive.
Awesome.
Um, I really enjoy Michael Jackson.
Mm,
So, like anything he's ever made, I will get that extra kind of pep in my step. And I'm like, yeah, I've got this. Like, let's go. I kind of talk to myself and psych myself up in the best way possible.
I love it.
Um,
I love it.
Yeah. So I would say those two definitely kind of keep me light, motivated, inspired, interested, and
Yeah.
faithful.
Oh, I love it. I love it. What is a quote or phrase or prayer that keeps you motivated to keep you moving on your lupus journey?
Hmm. I think that I don't know if there's necessarily just one. I think in general, and probably sounds redundant at this point, but
No, you're good.
anything that highlights an air of positivity and faith and gratitude are always kind of the cornerstones of
Mhm.
things that keep me inspired, keep me uplifted. Um, I always think, I mean, it's a very simple quote, but it's like tomorrow's another day because tomorrow is another day. And
Mhm.
I look at it as a new opportunity to start over, start fresh, give
Yeah,
myself a new opportunity. So,
yeah, I love that. I love that. Tomorrow's another day, and you just got
mhm,
to keep pushing until you get to that other day.
exactly.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Looking at your journey with lupus, what are three things that you want everyone to take home with them today? If you have more, that's fine too. But we'll start with three because sometimes, I can be long-winded. So I'll give everybody that opportunity to give me much more. But what are three things that you really want people to take away from our conversation today, about your story and about, dealing with lupus?
One thing would be to always be honest and accept where you are within your lupus journey or within your day. So, honesty and acceptance would definitely be one. The second would be to prioritize one's needs to the point where you make sure that you are living life to serve yourself because you only have one life to live. And so it's important to make the most of it and do what's going to serve in your best interest. And the third, I would say, is to be passionate. Be passionate about life, be passionate about your journey, passionate about your health. Just be passionate about everything. I think if you can come from a place of true passion for everything, um, within your journey and your daily life, it will keep you inspired, keep you motivated, keep you committed to the journey,
Right.
and give you the best opportunity to really thrive in your life. I know so many people think, lupus, doom and gloom, but no, if you stay passionate about everything, you'll be able to not just live your life or survive your life, but you'll be able to thrive with lupus. And
Absolutely.
so there is that ability to live your best life. And I'd like to think that I am somewhat of a testament to that theory.
That you definitely are. That you definitely are. I love it. I love it. I love every word that you have said, and that I love that your story is so strong and you've been through so much, but you're here today to tell a story, and that makes a difference. That makes a difference. Let's see if we have any questions. Do we have any questions on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube before we get ready to go? Victoria has given us so much,
Mhm.
so much to think about, so many things to really tap into as we deal with lupus, and her story is very compelling. Domingo says, they're new here, 47-year-old male with lupus, and was actually told I had two different types of lupus and APS syndrome. All affects my blood. I was 145 pounds, all muscle, and now I'm 164. I'm so happy I found this group. I'm happy you're here, Domingo.
That's amazing.
I love that you're here. I'm sorry that you have lupus, but I'm so glad that you found us, and I hope that you stick around, ask your questions, and know that we are here to support you. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Victoria's story is just amazing. Amazing. Someone said earlier, I think it was Jenny, that said that you need to write a book, and she is absolutely right.
I
So
want to actually. I started while I was in the hospital.
don't we, right? See, you got to finish it. You got to finish it.
I
You
know.
just sit down and do it one day, because it's so important to get that story out there, and it's so healing when you write about your story as well.
Thank
So
you. I'm
that's
glad she said that because I need like I have a little note. I'm like, write book, but it's like you need to do it now. Like,
now you need to, that's just confirmation for you. It's time for you to get that book and write it. I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to read it, and I can't wait to publicly put you out there for that book. So I want to thank you so much. I want to be cognizant of your time, and I want to thank you for sitting and chatting with us. I so enjoyed your story, and I enjoyed you giving your little gems to everybody so that they can deal with lupus just a little bit better.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, I always find so much joy in sharing and connecting and hopefully being inspirational to some people. And, even after this, if anyone wants to connect with me in any capacity,
Mhm.
I'm an open book and always available. So,
Give us
always
your
happy
social media
to.
handles.
My social media is What Gibbs, which is WhatGibbs.
Okay.
And then on TikTok, it's kind of new. I'm working on it, but it's What Gibbs NYC.
Okay, I'm typing that out. I'm sorry. So it'll be what gives. I see. So you guys have her information. Please reach out if you have any questions, or if you would like her to speak to a group for you or whatever have you. Just go ahead and reach out and tell her what a great job she did. Thank you so much, Victoria. It has been such a pleasure.
Thank
And
you
I
so
look forward to
much.
doing more things with you.
Absolutely. Likewise.
Right, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I so appreciate you all. It has been a plum pleasing pleasure sitting with you all today and discussing Victoria's story, and having you get the opportunity to know who she is and know her story. So thank you for always tuning in. We look forward to seeing you again. Our next Lupus Live is probably going to be on 4/4, but don't forget to catch us this week. What is it? 4/1 for Chronic Courage. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate you all coming in, and have a great rest of your evening. Bye-bye.